All right, so the next step as we continue down this journey of clarifying the vision for the future, we're going to use a tool called Odyssey Planning to help you to brainstorm and come up with some ideas for what the future might look like. And this is going to help you to be creative and to maybe come up with some ideas that maybe you haven't thought about up until this point. And it's also going to be kind of a fun activity for you to just kind of play around with some alternative paths, alternative destinations. So, Dwight D. Eisenhower, he said that planning is everything, but the plan is nothing. And how many times have you had a plan in life that didn't quite work out the way that you had anticipated it to? And sometimes the plan works out better than we anticipate. Other times it doesn't go quite as well as we had hoped. And I want you to keep that in mind that as we're working towards creating a plan and creating this vision of the future, things will likely change as you start implementing the plan and as you start working towards that future. And sometimes you're going to come across something that that's an even better future than you had originally anticipated. So I want you to just kind of keep that in mind. Keep your mind open to better possibilities down the road as you learn more, as you grow more, and as new opportunities arise. But anyhow, that said, we're going to work on Odyssey planning. All right, so what is this? This is a way to brainstorm about how your life might go over the next 3 to 5 years. So some potential paths and destinations as you go through the journey that the next 3 to 5 years is going to take you. And that brainstorming, as we go through this process of brainstorming, I want you to remember to not limit yourself to things that you think are possible. Because you're going to learn new things, new opportunities are going to come your way, new technologies are going to come your way. I don't want you to feel limited by what you know today. I also don't want you to worry about the how. Um, we don't want to limit ourselves to a future that we know how today to get to. We want something bigger than that. We want something that's going to require us to grow. It's going to require us to learn. And I also don't want you to feel like you have to get it all perfectly mapped out today. This is a work in progress. And so we're gonna brainstorm some ideas and we're gonna come up with some potential paths, some potential futures. But you don't have to have all the details today. There are things that you're going to have to learn along the way. There are things that you're going to have to research, um, and that's okay. That's all part of the journey. Now you're going to give yourself some options by creating 3 5-year timelines. So there are three different versions of how the next 5 years might go. And in this, you're going to want to include both professional and personal milestones. So what you're doing at work and what you're doing outside of work. We're going to land on the ideal plan that if everything goes as I would like it to go, this is the plan for my next 5 years. We're also going to come up with a backup plan. What if that first plan doesn't work? Because remember, we're coming up with plans, coming up with a vision of the future that we don't even know that's possible today. It's a vision that's going to require you to grow and become a whole new person. And because of that, sometimes things don't work out the way that we'd like, or we start going down that path and heading in that direction, and then we realize, oh, you know what? Maybe this wasn't the direction I wanted to go in. And that's okay. So that's why we come up with the backup plan. So if plan A doesn't work out, what's another plan, another alternative plan that I would like as well? And then we're going to come up with a plan. This one's more creative and more fun of the unlimited resources plan. What would I do if money and time, people's opinions, none of those things mattered? What would I do if I could do anything I wanted? And then once we've got those plans and you've had a chance to kind of compare and look at them and feel your way towards which one's your ideal plan, then we're going to extend that ideal plan out to 10 years. So if we get to our destination in 5 years, what might the next 5 years past that look like? So it just kind of shows us a little bit more of the direction we're headed if we go this way over the next 5 years. Now, what are the components? I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here so you can see an idea of what this is going to look like. So it's graphical and it's a timeline. So we've got the 5 years along there. And this is like, using symbols and words and pictures to kind of just describe this idea. And notice that, well, let me walk you through this plan. So this is from the book Designing Your Life. And this is where I got this idea of Odyssey planning from. And what you'll see here is this is called the All In, the Silicon Valley Story. And the idea is like coming up with a startup and going through that process. But what you'll see is towards the top here, we've got this track that's all related to the business side or the professional side of things. So prototyping an idea, finding a co-founder, raising some money, um, creating a second prototype, raising more money, the beta product, scaling, hockey stick growth, going public, right? But then if you look down this next line here, sign up a personal trainer, run a half marathon, climb Mount Whitney, hike 100 miles of the Pacific Coast Trail. And then you've got some other ideas around like starting a family, going on a Hawaii vacation, going to Australia, Sydney, um, keeping in mind, keeping mind, body, and family healthy, right? So there's all kinds of different things on here in kind of a relatively small space. So that's like the graphical and so you're going to do the same thing where you're going to put different parts of your life, work, family, yourself, on here in pictures and words and images. Um, and then the next component I wanted to point out is the dashboard down here. So you'll see, I'll extend this here. But what we've got on the dashboard is the resources. So do you have the resources, the money, the time, the things that it would take to make this plan happen? And you put that on a scale, right? 0 to 100. 0 being you don't have it at all. You don't have any of the resources. 100 being you've got all the resources you need. Where do you land for this plan? Then you've got the likability. So how much do you like this plan? Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it something you're really excited about? Or is it something that you're like, yeah, I feel like I'd be just going through the motions and living life. It's not the type of plan we want to come up with. The next part here is the confidence. How confident do you feel that you can make this thing happen? And finally is the coherence, or what I call alignment. How well does this plan, this idea of the future, line up with what you value? So we just went through the exercise to identify your values. How well does this line up with your values? Because if you're living a life that's not in alignment with your values, it's going to be really hard for you to feel fulfilled and to feel happy in life. And so we want to make sure we've got good coherence or alignment there. Now, the title, the book, they suggest that you do a catchy 6-word title. Now, the interesting thing about that is to make it 6 words requires you to do some thinking, requires you to get a little bit creative. But what it also does is it gives you a way to kind of wrap this plan all in this one title. And that gives you an easy way to kind of differentiate between the different plans. And I think it's also just kind of a fun way to get creative. So you're going to have the title, and then finally, you're going to have some questions. Now, these are not questions about the plan, but they're curiosities that might be satisfied by living this way for 5 years. So it's not questions you ask yourself before you start the plan. It's more of these are questions that will get answered as I live this plan. So, do I have what it takes? And you really don't know if you have what it takes until you try it, right? Is my idea good enough? Again, you don't really know if your idea is good enough until you get it out there, until you start putting it in front of other people, until you prototype it, until you start trying to raise money and seeing if people um, are interested in investing in it. Will I attract VC money? Now, this is all kind of tech related stuff, but VC money is essentially the venture capitalists, the investors, and you can only attract investors if you've got a good idea and you've got a way to execute it. And none of those things, you can't really fully answer those until you try. All right, so that's essentially it. That is what we call Odyssey planning, and it's just a fun way to brainstorm about how your future might be. Now, here's some tasking for you. You're going to complete your 3 5-year Odyssey plans. So remember the ideal, the backup, and the if I had unlimited resources plan. Now it's okay, like you don't have to label them as ideal, backup, and unlimited resources. Just put together 3 plans, and they need to be different from each other. Okay, so this isn't like I um, uh, I work as I'm trying to come up with some ideas. Um, I work as an accountant for Walmart. Maybe that's plan A. And plan B is I work as an accountant for Target. Now, those are way too similar. We want them to be different. We want, maybe one is I work as an accountant at Target, uh, or working for another business. And maybe another plan is I run my own accounting business, right? Now, those are both related to accounting, but very, very different paths and different destinations. So you want to make sure that the three are different enough from each other, that they're not just slight twists on the same story. And then once you've identified your ideal plan, and if you don't know what that is at the beginning, once you get these all laid out, and then start looking at the dashboard and seeing which one do you like the most, which one do you feel more confident about, which one aligns better with your values, which one do you have the resources to implement. That will help you to identify um, which of those is the ideal plan. And then the ideal plan is the one that will extend out 10 years. So what could, if we got to here in 5 years, where do you think you could get in 5 years past that? Now, I just kind of talked about this already, but you want to reflect on those plans. Which one excites you the most? So we want to answer the questions, these questions. Answer these questions for each of the plans. Which one excites you the most? Which one feels draining? Do any of them feel like, oh man, this feels like an exhausting next 5 years? Which one is playing it safe? And which one is risky? Now, if we want to truly feel fulfilled in life, we're going to have to take some risks. If we're just playing it safe, we're just living in our comfort zone, um, it's going to be hard to feel fully fulfilled in life. What do you notice as you compare your dashboards? Which one stands out as one that you like more than the others? What questions do you have about taking any of these paths? Are there any questions you need to answer before you try something? And how might you prototype or test one of these experiences to understand it better. Now, we'll talk about this in a few weeks as we start putting together an action plan. But I really like the idea of how could you test out some of these things in a low cost, low investment way um, to see if maybe you might like it. And some of the best ways to do that is to have conversations with people who are doing that thing, or to try some, small, like if if you've never been hiking and you want to know if you'd enjoy hiking Mount Whitney, maybe taking some small hikes, 1 or 2 miles, might be good to start with. Um, so you get an idea without doing this big, huge hike. You get an idea of whether or not you like hiking. All right. And then finally, once you've got those plans, you're going to present those plans to at least two other people. And what you'll find as you start presenting these plans to other people is that you'll get some feedback like, wow, I always knew that this was something that you'd want to pursue. Or you might get feedback like, wow, I never thought of that before. I never would have thought that maybe you'd be interested in that thing. Um, and then you also might notice that some new thoughts, as you start talking through it, um, you'll be reflecting and you might think, you know what? I thought that was a good idea when it was all inside my head. But now that I'm speaking it out loud, I'm noticing that I don't really like this part of the plan. Or, wow, I like this plan a lot more than I originally did. All right, so that's it. That's your task. Put together your Odyssey plans, and then we'll be able to build off of that as we move forward in clarifying that vision.